Hey, Sean.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
All right. I was just doing the things to claim host and turn on the transcription. So
It's a process, isn't it?
yeah.
Mhm.
So I've also a good 5-10 minutes ago I shared some minutes, but
Yes.
I think for
them.
these subcommittee meetings I have a personal mission to lower the bar on the minutes because I just
I love it.
I just because I feel that with these subcommittees, the more process we do, I know it detracts from the time we all have
Right.
to.
No, I agree.
But so I know we don't have quorum yet, but I got a chance to look quickly at some of what you forwarded. So Conservation Commission is going to formalize Conservation Corps.
That's my plan.
That's great.
They don't know it yet, but
all for it. So one of the things I was going to do, and I was going to circulate some draft text, but then I figured it should come from this, from what you have in there, about just using the ESC messaging to recruit volunteers, but probably should make sure. I noticed there wasn't the information on how to contact to volunteer, so I didn't know, like, that was once I get that
it
from
should
you,
be
that
at
we
the
could.
end.
Okay.
At the end of the document.
There was something in the text I saw. In the text, it wasn't in the. So yeah, there's I guess it's just the email, the contact information. So yeah, I guess then my suggestion would be to also put it in the section on becoming a conservation steward.
Yes.
So, but that's right. But I was looking very quickly because I was looking 20 minutes ago.
I was throwing it together quickly, so
yeah,
we're on the same page.
No, it's great. Yeah. So I'm hoping this might be a fast meeting tonight. My own bandwidth was limited by some personal things the last month, that just some unexpected family health issues and other things, and then
I'm sorry to hear that.
But, it's okay, just takes up time.
Yes.
And then but I figured we could check and we could talk about this and check in on a few other things.
Yeah, I figured it's a starting point.
Yeah. And we were contacted, I think the public participant who was most concerned will come to the meeting next week, but had come to the community education group looking to voice concerns about kind of the land use issues around the Vogue, and so I don't know if there's been discussion of that at Conservation Commission as well.
Last night it was a continued meeting.
All right.
Yeah. It was civil.
Okay.
You don't always know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it turns into a firestorm.
Well,
it's just a lot of information to take in. That's the thing. Yeah, there are so many components to it, and it's a hard. I think it's a hard thing to follow, especially from from anyone even.
Yeah,
it's just a lot. I mean, it's good that the commission has taken on 2 consultants, one to help with the wetland review and one for the stormwater. So I think that's going to be a huge benefit, because it realistically, they don't have the time and they really don't have the expertise to go to the depths that you need to for a project of this size. So that's one great arm that they have, a consultant rule, so that they can choose a consultant and then the applicant is required to pay for it.
Oh.
So it's a win-win. And it benefits the applicant too, if they want a balanced, if they actually want a balanced review,
Yeah.
then I think it's only fair. And the consultants that the commission uses are really very conservative in their approach and well-versed in being conciliatory with applicants. And it's just been a good, we've come across some good consultants, so I'm glad about that. And I think it helps with the public perception too, because they can see that the commission is doing everything they can within their powers to get as thorough a review as possible and to ask as many questions as they can. And I think that helps.
Oh, good. But I imagine there's still always, there'll be further opportunity for it not to be civil. Yes,
yeah. It started off a little rocky last meeting, but it calmed down. And on both sides, not just from the public.
Yeah.
So it was a balanced animosity.
Hi, Myra.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I'm okay. It's been a long week already, but
Only Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, TGIW.
Yes. Hey, the Bruins won in overtime. That's all I care about. That keeps me going. Next week's a short week.
That's true.
Christmas is right around the corner.
And Thanksgiving.
And Thanksgiving.
So.
next week's a very odd week because it's the schools have 2 days off next
Right.
week.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
So that doesn't make it feel shorter.
no.
Must be a pumpkin collection.
Oh. Busy week.
hey, Julie.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I think we can call the order and I'll start making some notes. Alrighty. Sorry, I should get up my notes here. Today's the 2nd of November. Okay, called order at 7:33 p.m. So I circulated the agenda yesterday, but I think it's just our standard agenda. And as I mentioned to Judy before we called order, just I'm trying to lower the bar on the formality here while still remaining compliant. Just because I'm aware of my own schedule, and I imagine for all the subcommittees, it just the time we spent on formality takes away from the time to just get stuff done. And I felt that tension this month. We really just called order, public engagement, review and updates of goals and activities, schedule next meeting, matters not anticipated, motion to adjourn. So the basic agenda, and I don't see any members of the public here for public engagement. I don't know if people have the chance to review the minutes that I circulated like 8 minutes before the meeting, but fairly generic minutes. Any comments or concerns? Are we able to vote on that, or should we put it off?
No concerns.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Okay, then
Motion to accept.
Second.
all right, all in favor? Aye, okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on to review and updates of 2022-23 goals and activities. I thought tonight's meeting might just be fairly fast. We can check in on some things. I think maybe take the bulk of time to look at what Judy shared. Judy, I don't know if you'd be prepared to share your screen with that in a few minutes. Otherwise I can pull them up, but might be better if I can. I think you can. You should be able to.
I think I have them. I can
Okay.
pull them up.
Alrighty. And so do we want to go right into that?
Sure. You have it, Myra?
Yep.
I was
Just
reading it
open
on the train, so I don't know where I have it. It's reading it on my phone.
Oh, can you make me a co-host, John?
Oh, sure.
All right.
And Judy, was most of this from your did you start with a blank sheet of paper on this, or were there
No,
models you were
absolutely
using?
not.
I was gonna say, this is impressive if you did that.
I just assumed you know, bang this out between 4 and 4:30 p.m. today.
Very close.
I love the conservation steward phrasing. I mean, I think that's a great title. That
Me
it,
too.
you know, just the title itself is a reward that I hope would encourage participants.
Yes, several other towns, they all do it a little bit differently. So I tried to find kind of a middle of the road, a simplified approach. And some of the numbers I didn't have yet, the acres, and I thought once we have like the number of trails that we have, that could be added as well. And the mapping, we can put that together. I think Rebecca might have some of that mapping already.
So one question I had is I just looked at this quickly before the meeting. We haven't addressed the issue of biking and mountain biking, and I don't know if that was intentional. I know that can be a really sticky subject, but I know we do have some people in town who do use our green spaces for biking.
Yeah, I think that would have to be a discussion on where it could be, you know, if there were specific trails just for it. Because otherwise, if it starts to turn into a lot of bike traffic and kind of somewhat going off trail, it ruins the understory. So that's the only concern. But I think there could certainly be dedicated areas where mountain biking, I mean, the trails aren't, I see it kind of as more, not more hardcore mountain biking because there aren't, you know, gigantic hills, are very challenging terrain areas, but it is, I mean, I know some of the kids ride their bikes through it. So I think it's a great,
Yeah, I mean, I think more about, I mean, if I think about who in town are likely to be conservation stewards, you know, I think about like the Scouts, you know, I think that is a great sort of opportunity. And I think that there are some adults, but I think there are adult mountain bikers, not as, you know, who aren't looking, you know, they're going elsewhere for the like hardcore,
right.
or they're going into Breakheart. I mean, there are some trails in Breakheart. But I do think that there are people who use the town forest for that.
Yes.
And if they're, you know, they could be really, it could be a really great opportunity to, who are, you know, they're interested in environmental stewardship and they're interested in maintaining green spaces. And so I think they could be real allies. And
agree.
so.
And I think it would be a fun family activity, you know, a family friendly kind of thing. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, I think
I'll add that.
So just a high level note on this in terms of kind of maybe an introduction sections or something about like motivations for this, but I thought that it might be nice to add a little bit just about accessibility. I think about, you know, older users with, you know, limited mobility, that, you know, well-maintained trails provide opportunities for people that poorly maintained trails, you know, who might not be able to access poorly maintained trails. So I just didn't know if that was just worth a sentence or two for.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't tackle the introduction. I looked at it, I tossed a few around, but yeah, I will definitely add that.
I mean, like some of the wide trails over in, you know, obviously in Breakheart, like that's, you see users there who don't go on other trails because, you know, it's safer to do so.
Right. And I think there are a lot of bird watchers. There are a couple of sites that I've looked at that people in Wakefield are very active on, which birds they've seen in which areas. So I think there could be certain, maybe in the mapping, certain areas pointed out where there are higher points or points where different birds have been seen, you know, like areas of interest within mills. That could get people like that, and a lot of them are in the same places every week for the bird watching. So I think they would be a good target for the stewards as well. Just the consistency of the visiting that they do.
Right.
So I know when you said becoming a conservation steward, so I had mentioned earlier about like just we should put the contact information there is probably appropriate place for it as well. But also said if you're interested in volunteering, simply contact me, we'll arrange to meet to discuss the program in your interest. I mean, I assume I think one of the nice things about this is I could see like somebody does this, they're proud of it, they could put on their resume, you know, like,
Right.
you know, activities, conservation steward, town of Wakefield. And so I thought maybe adding something, if there's going to be a process for accepting or designating people, or, you know, is it simply like you go to a training, but maybe mentioning something about what that process is for the designation. You know, not that titles are everything, but I think it could be added in there.
Yep.
I mean, I assume the idea is the Conservation Commission would keep a list, or the Conservation Department would keep a list of who those stewards are, right? So,
Right, and it's more just giving them an overview of what their tasks would be, just so they're clear about the parameters that they're going to be hopefully constrain themselves to. I highlighted in yellow, that was in another town, the radios without headphones and the hunting or trapping. I know trapping isn't allowed, but the hunting, I know bow hunting, I guess, is allowed in some. I'm not really that clear on that. That's why I highlighted, because I need to figure that out more. Radios, I don't think that's a big, that's always a problem in Breakheart, but I don't think it's going to be a problem off the trails here.
What kind of hunting did you say people do?
Bow hunting.
Oh, bow. I thought bull. I'm like, I've never seen a bull in there.
Good eye out.
Okay, sorry. I knew that wasn't what it was, but I couldn't figure out what you were saying. Okay.
So I do think we should clarify that Breakheart, I assume, is out of scope because it's state land.
Well, it's not in Wakefield.
Part of it is.
The reservation, no. The part that the Volk owns is in Wakefield, and the school is in Wakefield, but the reservation isn't.
So like when you get onto the trail, you're technically in Saugus.
Correct.
Cool. Did not know that.
Me either.
And maybe some
Yeah.
sort, I mean, I don't know if it needs to really be a link, but like Maple Way links to the trails and the town forest. So maybe, it's like a whole afternoon family event. The kids can run around the playground, then you can explore the trails and maybe have a picnic lunch. And I know there's some spots probably along the trails off of Holland Road. There are a bunch of open areas, which would be nice for little picnic spots. Pack a lunch and a blanket, or might be a nice little activity. And the other thing that is something about an awareness of ticks, things like that, what to stay away from, the high brush, how ticks brush off on you, things like that might be helpful. Just a cautionary, keep a heads up for this, and this. I don't know if that's really necessary, but
I think it's important.
yeah.
I know the town has lawyers who worry about these things more than we have to, but if by setting up a conservation steward program, is there a door that opens for liability if somebody's fulfilling these roles? And
we can check. I don't think so. I mean, most
Yeah.
towns, right, are protected against things like this unless it's gross negligence.
Right, and especially where it's a volunteer, you're not actually a town employee.
Yeah.
But I'll find out.
So going back to what you're saying about playgrounds, are you saying that we could, like, playgrounds would be considered part of what we would be stewarding?
No, but I'm thinking as a way of selling the whole idea.
Yeah, no, I actually think maybe playgrounds could be like, maybe it'll spill over into some of the playgrounds.
Yeah,
'Cause,
right.
like, they're awful on weekends, over
Right.
by the community garden.
Right. But I was thinking of maybe someone who has younger children who wants to do it, and then they could go to the playground and then walk the trails. It would be a learning component. The children, let's pick up the trash, let's look at this. So it could be more, a more comprehensive type of thing. And I think what I'd like to see down the road, maybe once this is up and running, is have someone come in to host seasonal walks. I know in Andover, they do that a lot. And they talk about, what you might see in the winter. They have snowshoe hikes. And I think that could be something that would be pretty neat on some of these trails. You may see different birds that you wouldn't normally, or birds that you just don't take note of. And just getting people out in the winter is nice. I know a lot of people cross-country ski. I don't know if the trails are equipped for that, but snowshoeing could certainly be something. And it gets more of a year-round type of awareness about the trails, which I think would be helpful.
I'd love to see that. I mean, especially, I think we've been snowshoeing on some of the trails. And it's been great, but it is, we're often the only ones out there, and there's not a huge
Right.
amount.
But I think it's one of those things that it's not really, really thought about. I think the trails are kind of, I don't know, maybe like a hidden jewel in Wakefield. And maybe if there was more information about, here's somewhere like in the trail mapping where the terrain is suitable for snowshoeing in the winter, or, if there's not a terribly deep snowpack, it's still not super rocky that you're not going to break your ankle snowshoeing over it.
One other question I would have on this component of sort of how people can help, how stewards can help is what about trail marking? So I'm thinking about the town forest, and there's
Yep.
the trail's not always the most clear. When it starts, it's pretty clear. A lot of people go there.
Right. No, I think absolutely.
That's like the color, the paint color, and maybe that goes along with the mapping.
Yes. Once we have the kiosks, I think that it would have the legend with the colors, like you see at every trail, at other trails. I think that would be definitely necessary.
And the QR codes that we talked about, I think last time, I think,
Yes.
Sean, you brought that up. I was hiking and I was in Lake Tahoe a couple weeks ago, and they have these great, the markings are good, but they have these little QR codes that are that,
Right.
tell you whether to be concerned about bears or not.
Right.
There's one, and I don't know if this applies to where our green spaces are, but I was on a trail in Andover not too long ago, and they have I don't know if you've ever been in Ward Reservation up to the solstice stones, but they have QR codes too that tells, there's a person recorded a video that tells sort of the historical markings or, just some information about the area, which I thought was really cool and interesting. And so that may be a phase 2, I get that, but if even people are, aware of what they're looking at, or why is this part important to Wakefield?
Right. And that could be something that could be incorporated in the kiosks as well. Like at the town forest, it could be, this is an ACEC, this is what it means, this is what you might see. This is, why it's important. And then as you go along the trail, there would be different, I don't know how that would be. Maybe that could be marked with a different color. I think I would like that too. Andover has so many great, that trail, the Avis trail system, they do a phenomenal job.
This was the trustees, the reservation, so they have a major advantage. But yeah, they have a lot of great resources up there.
Yeah. Avis, I think, does it well. I think they do, I think, a better job than the trustees. They have more hands-on with their trails than the trustees do.
And then, so you all, if somebody notifies you that there's a problem with the trail, is that DPW you contact, or what's the plan?
Well, it would depend on what if it's, there've been complaints in Melrose on the Wakefield line off of Spring Street. that there's been encroachment with like construction vehicles onto the conservation land. So then conservation would get involved, issue an enforcement order. But if it's something, like a large, like a couch has been dumped, that's happened too. Then DPW will go out and take it out. But I don't foresee that many, unless it's something like toxic chemicals were dumped, or, oil barrel, something like that. I know there've been like car parts, tires, things like that, that DPW would go out and take care of. But other than that, I don't see that there would be a big need. I mean, conservation hasn't received any complaints about trash on the trails. So maybe people are picking, maybe it's smaller amounts, but I don't think large trash is a big problem, which is good. And I don't know what other problems could come about on some of these trails.
If volunteers are picking up trash, are there options for disposing of it other than in their home trash? If there are larger things, or are there ways of, if they're doing it in volunteer capacity?
I don't think so. I mean, at Maple they have trash barrels. But like off of Holland Ave, there's just no place for it. And that's another thing that could be maybe a yearly cleanup day. If all the bags were brought down to one location, then we could get the DPW to pick it up, something like that. But I haven't heard that trash is a big issue. It's more encroachment that is 99% of the time the problem. But hopefully, once, if it's approved that we can have the land transferred over to the Conservation Commission, then we would have a way to define the property lines and notify people that they're encroaching on conservation managed land. So there'd be some way, because right now where it's tax title, it's difficult to do anything.
Judy, I was just doing my ARPA priorities. Is that the $25,000 that you asked for?
Yes,
In the ARPA?
because the
Okay.
titles have to be cleared first.
Okay, I just put my check mark to make that a priority. Okay,
Thank you. And that was the estimate that Tom Mullen had given.
okay. Is there a way, like, I'm sure they don't want us planting things, right? But like milkweed or things like that, like, is there certain, maybe that's something we would do as a group where it could be assessed?
Yeah, I think that, definitely in certain areas, that's definitely a possibility.
Okay.
Does the high school have a community service requirement?
Nope. The Honor
The National Honor Society does.
Yeah.
Yep.
that is.
And some of the what do they call it? Confirmation classes at the Catholic churches do as well.
And I know some neighboring towns or nearby towns, this high schools do, but I guess we don't have to go out of our way to fit this to other towns.
I get a lot of inquiries from parents who have like 10, 11, 12-year-olds where it's really hard for them to find volunteer opportunities.
Mhm.
So I like the idea of kind of just like being a family thing, Judy, too.
I feel like, and maybe it's down here. I didn't get this far. Oh, it is maybe yeah, I was looking for like some guidance on how to, trimming the foliage. There's ways to do it that is less damaging to the plant, I imagine.
Yeah, but by and large, the things that would be trimmed in areas where these trails, especially like the town forest, Holland Road, are very durable plants. So it's not like you're trimming back something that's flowering. It's not a fruit tree. that you'd have to be concerned with a particular pruning method. With most of these, if it's hanging over the trail, you can just snip the end.
It also probably means it grows back pretty quick.
Yeah. But I know the trails in Holland Road have been used for years, apparently, probably decades. So once they trim them back a few times and the trail gets a little wider, it becomes less of a problem.
I think this is great. Have you discussed this with Conservation Commission yet, or?
I haven't, I just threw this together this afternoon.
Okay, so then,
I
so-
talked to them about it in concept, so they know it's in the work.
Okay, so would you want to present this there before, like, we help get get people to express interest, or is it helpful to get people to express interest to see that there is demand to know that it's worth moving ahead with this? Which is
I think it's, I was planning on showing it to them at the next conservation meeting, which is in 2 weeks. The only hesitation I have is where so much of the land is tax title. I would just, I mean, some of the trails are fine. It would have to, I would feel we'd have to stick to the ones that are already under town designated control.
Yeah.
So I don't know when the vote is taking place for the APRA money designations. Do you know
I
when
think
that
it's
is?
next meeting.
Oh, okay.
Because I heard today I was one of the last ones to get mine in, so I think they're really
Oh.
trying to, and our next meeting is the 14th. It's not next week.
Is it, do they have to spend it all by the end of December? Is it?
No, it honestly, it doesn't even have to be allocated until like December of 24.
Oh, okay, okay.
But we do want to get moving. I mean, there's a little bit
Right.
of fear that it might get clawed back if towns don't look like
Absolutely.
they're using it. So
Right.
we want to make sure that we have a plan in place.
Right, right. So I'll present it to the commission at the next meeting, and then I think at that point it'd be fine to put a call out for volunteers.
So
Because most-
oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, a lot of the stuff probably wouldn't be undertaken until spring anyways, any kind of maintenance or, people would be less apt to be using it, I think, around now, as it gets colder and.
So what about ice clearing in not in midwinter, but like kind of in early spring kind of things where you have freezing and thawing? Is that something you'd want volunteers to participate in? Or
Clearing ice off the trails?
yeah, when you like early spring, when you have freezing and thawing patterns, and so where you might have small patches of ice, is that something like, would you welcome a conservation steward walking in with with an ice clearer and just like pushing ice off the trails, or would, I can imagine that could also be disruptive. in
Yeah,
places, so.
I wouldn't recommend that.
So
Which is good.
I guess my question is sort of, you said the tax title land is not sort of where you'd started. Am I understanding that's the town forest?
It's the whole town forest. I just don't feel comfortable having people out on the tax title land until it's under firm control of an entity in town. Because it's kind of a no man's land.
I guess I'm not clear what land conservation currently has that you want people to be on. Like you don't really want people on Audubon Road, and you don't want people around Crystal Lake. So
Right,
I'm
well,
not clear what.
Crystal Lake is posted, that's a watershed, and it's posted no trespassing, so that's not up to the conservation, that's state driven, and that's the water department. But Reedy Meadow, there is a small trail system, when it's dry, it's fine.
Mhm.
And it's beautiful in the winter, it's a
It's
huge.
beautiful,
area.
yeah, and people go out there and they ice skate too. I mean, I think it's a great area to I mean, I love it out
Right.
there.
And we're hoping that some of the businesses along Audubon Road will help with some of the trails behind their buildings, which would be great. People can certainly still use the trails in the town forest. But I just wouldn't feel comfortable starting the steward program until we have a grasp on that. I mean, any of the Holland Road, any of these trails people are using now, and they can use them. It's, I mean, it's tax title. But formalizing something on something that the town kind of owns but doesn't, I mean, it's not up to me, but I'm just not comfortable
Yeah,
until
I
we have
agree.
this formalized.
Honestly, and it gives us a little bit of urgency to get it settled. I
Right.
mean, I kind of wouldn't want this to go into full effect. I'd rather be able to say, like, we are ready to go, but we need you to get this tax title cleaned up.
Right. No, I agree.
Can I ask about the rail trail, which I know we're not supposed to be on, but we're on? It's pretty amazing. I wonder whether it could something like this, that's not going to be under conservation, right?
No, but Rebecca and I have targeted a couple of areas close to, like across from the middle school, around that area on either
Yeah.
side. It's that's all tax title.
Okay.
And it's all invasive. So we had talked about more of a robust planting with visually attractive and habitat friendly, something that would really make an impact as people are going through. So, I mean, that will be a well-used corridor.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But like,
That's
there's
where
tons of
We
leaves.
should talk about milkweed.
Yes. It'd be a great place probably for milkweed. Okay, I didn't know who that was. And I think eventually we may kind of need to think about how to maintain that rail trail. I'm not sure anybody's really thought about it, but we're not there yet. Let's get it built first.
I guess my only other question, based on what you said, is there a need for eradication of invasive plants in any of these spaces? And is that was something else you would consider for stewards?
Yeah, I think you're breaking up, Judy. I can't seem to be.
I went off video. I thought maybe it was me.
I thought maybe it was me too. Yeah, it's like you're. It's
Yeah,
like
you
you're in
sound
a
underwater.
tunnel. Weird. You can hear us?
Do you want to try turning off your camera and see if that helps? Sometimes Zoom just crashes.
Is that any better?
Yeah,
Yes.
completely better.
Oh, isn't that funny? Yeah, no, I think invasives could be in certain areas, certainly the vines, things like that. But that would have to be a well-supervised type of thing. And I don't think along a lot of the trails, there are a ton of invasives. So that might not be as big an issue.
Well, this looks great to me. Thank you so much for putting it together.
Sure.
I love it. I wonder whether we don't like, kind of to your point, Sean, like, do we do little trainings or do we have like an inaugural class of conservation stewards or something?
If there's a lot of interest, I can imagine it only would make sense to do it that way because it'll just be less time for Judy. I don't know if it'd be you or Rebecca or others, but like whoever's got to do it, probably easier to, if you've got a dozen people want to start it, right? But that would be nice because then in addition to having the cool title and the cool opportunity to serve the town, then maybe you build up a little bit of esprit de corps.
Right. I agree.
I want to do it.
I want to do it too. So next steps, you'll take it to Conservation Commission?
Yes. So if you have any, I'll add the things that we've talked about tonight. If you have any edits, anything like that, it's 2 more weeks, so there's plenty of time if you want to throw anything in. And there's also a form that they would fill out. Some towns have an electronic form that they can just go on and I know Melrose, they ask that they visit at least once a month. Most people that do this are doing it every week. Yeah, they're regular trail walkers are. But they ask if you're going to make the commitment, then that should be the minimum is once a month.
Okay.
And it seems to work fine for them.
That's great.
So it's something that it's not an overwhelming ask of people. Time-wise.
Could you imagine having like a team of people? Like I can imagine like I could find, 4 friends and we could just make sure that we cover this piece of trail. And once a month seems, it'd be like amazing to do that. And I also worry. But I feel like if we could, if it was like a kind of like an assignment thing, like I'm going to sign up to be a trail steward and I'm going to commit to this space and I'm going to have my little team that's also responsible for this space with me. Or are you imagining sort of just more of a general, like if you sign up, you're just kind of gonna do this all every time you go on the trails and you're going to be on the trails pretty often?
No, I think it could be flexible. If people are willing to volunteer, then
Mhm.
I think it should be how they would like to do it. Usually what happens is each steward is assigned a certain trail or a certain area, and that's their dedicated area to report on, so that as many areas as possible are covered.
Great.
And I think it'll be fine tuned, as things move along. We'll see what works, what doesn't work.
It could be like this, those signs on the side of the highway, this patch of highway is, maintained by this person.
Yeah, right.
I'd be like that.
We could have like a Facebook page for stewards or something, and people can share what they're seeing, right? Or if there's an area that needs a lot of work or something.
Right. Because some people may not want to commit to it, but they may want to report on something they see, or I think that's a good idea. And I don't think people always think about that. They see something, then it's like, oh God, what's the town doing about this? And you keep walking. I think it's kind of human nature. So if they hit a place where they could make a quick post, like they do with the, if you have a pothole or anything like they have on the town website, it could be something like that. If you see something on a trail, here's where you can report it. I think that would be helpful. And then hopefully that would.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, hopefully that would expand into other, public spaces and how they can be beautified or, revegetated, things like that. Just heightening the interest that people have in open spaces.
I was just going to go back to the process question. So if you'll take it to Conservation Commission, so you probably will, so probably town council will meet before you go to Conservation Commission, but is it okay if I kind of say that we have this idea? I guess I'm asking the whole committee now because it's our committee or subcommittee, that we're exploring this idea of conservation stewards, and that these tax title searches would help us really formalize and expand that as I lobby for the tax title money.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I know Steve has said he was supportive of it, so I hope that helps.
And it's such a little bit of money out of the whole thing, but
Right.
I'm kind of in favor of doing little things that will make big differences with this money.
And it's right. It gets people excited about a starting point. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. And Karen Burke is going to be involved in the open space committee. Yeah, I talked to her about like dementia friendly areas, which would be important, small areas where people could be outside. So I think it'll be a more comprehensive plan this time.
Great.
I hope.
Great. So moving on, other updates. I know we had a few to-dos from last time. I had some external contacts to make that I did not get to with the forestry school folks and things, following up on our conversation with trees, and I'll try to get to that soon. I apologize. Half my month last month got messed up by a larger family health issue. And Myra, you had I had an item here. Did you manage? Were you able to chat with Rob Darnell about some of his if he had mapping information from some of the trail stuff?
Well, I held off because Judy mentioned at our larger committee meeting that the Conservation Commission is doing the mapping. And so
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I'm happy. And I think that that's something that we could get volunteers to help with if there was like something around sort of being on the trails and mapping them as they go. But I didn't want to step on any toes. So I don't know, Judy, if you can sort of provide clarity on what Conservation Commission or Conservation Department is able to do. And then maybe we think about volunteers beyond that.
Yeah, I know Rebecca has been working with the town's GIS person to do some mapping. I don't know how far she's gotten, but I agree. I think as people are on the trails, it would help because they can certainly be mapped, but until you're really on the ground, there may be a difference in the mapping. That it's more beneficial to have someone who's actually walking the trail to map it.
So is there
a combination?
Is there someone at the town, like the GIS people, that we should talk to about, like, if that is a missing piece and, you know, what software people should use or what information specifically is needed to connect the trail to the mapping software?
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable because I know Rob had he used an app to do the trail mapping while he was out there. So I don't know if, I mean, I don't know enough about that, but if someone walked the trail and had the coordinates, I would think they would then be able to be translated to the mapping system that the town has.
All Trails makes this really easy because they already have a feature for users to add. So it is just
Yes,
kind of,
and I know Rob has used that for some of the trails.
and,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of the folks who, if they're trail enthusiasts more broadly, they're probably already using the All Trails to locate things
Right.
elsewhere.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's an easy, and then it would just be a matter of making sure that information could be exported or copied easily
Yes,
for the town's
Yes.
purposes. But but that's and that there's a free version of that, as well as they have a paid subscription version. But I think even the free
Right.
version can save the trails.
So who is the person at the town that I should talk, that we should talk to sort of figure out the status and what's left to be done?
Katie Lafferty, she's in the engineering department. And I can talk to Rebecca tomorrow and let you know. I don't know what conversations Rebecca has had with her, but I'll ask her tomorrow and I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay, that'd be great. Because I feel like this is something we could do, and I again, I think, I firmly believe that the Scouts should not be our only plan for some of these, but I also think when I mentioned this idea to them, or I mentioned sort of trail maintenance to some of their leaders, they got very excited because they do have community service hours, and
Right.
so I do think that we could, and with others too, I think as other people are getting out there in the fall and in the winter, I think we could make good progress on this over the sort of quiet time, especially as we're sort of working out behind the scenes on the tax title properties.
Right.
But I just don't want to get people moving on something and then have it not be helpful or useful.
Exactly. Yeah. No, understood.
All right. I don't know if there were any other follow-up items from our last meeting.
Cambridge doesn't have the tree information yet.
Okay.
They're still fine tuning so I think within the next 2 weeks, they'll be all set, and hopefully he said he would share that with me, the canopy mapping. And I think that could be, added somehow as a component in the trails discussion. It would be like an interesting aside as people are out there. Like, this is what the canopy cover is here. This is what it does. And then that might translate to looking around to see what trees are in town. Where do we need trees?
Judy, can I ask you something? So for shade trees on public land to be taken down, do they have to have a public hearing?
Yes.
Why have we never had a public hearing that I've noticed on public shade trees being taken down?
There was one, I think 2 years ago on Broadway.
But like I had a huge tree taken out of the front of my yard, the front of my house, like a year ago. No notice that it was being
Was it-
taken down.
If it's dead or diseased, I think they don't have to have a hearing. If it's a live tree that's healthy, they have to have a hearing.
But how does somebody know that? Like it looked healthy to me. Okay, so there are some guidelines around that, because I read the statute and it looked to me like every shade tree has to come down. It has to have a public hearing.
Yeah. I can ask Dennis, because I know he'd know.
Okay, yeah, and I've asked Steve to look into this too, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll ask him, because I know, I had talked to Tim in engineering about that with all the trees that were planted around our neighborhood.
Yeah,
that
because we just
micro-
got tons of trees, right?
Yeah. when
We had
that
a lot taken
microburst-
down too.
Right, when that microburst came through, there were so many some were taken down because they were half hacked off, but some, I think, were interfering with the power lines. So what they did was DPW was planting one side and Gas and Light was planting the other, so that they could be more careful with the way they planted under the power lines.
Okay.
So it was a shared, yeah, but I'll find
Yeah,
out.
I'm just trying to figure out what the public notice, because I know in other towns, even in Melrose, there's like signs that go on trees saying this tree is scheduled to be taken down in 2 weeks. And then when something's taken down, they actually have these sidewalk stickers that say this tree is scheduled to be replanted.
Right,
So I would, that might be something for us eventually in this kind of little subcommittee to talk about too.
no, I think that's a good idea, because you're right, things like that kind of go unnoticed,
Yeah,
and once they're gone, they're gone.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, I would have liked to have had the chance to call up to say, why is it coming down? Right. And then you can explain it
Right.
to me. Like, I don't think you can't be unreasonable, but it would be nice to know instead of coming home and having a tree that's,
Yeah,
decades old
and part
down.
of it is, like, the one on Broadway it was a beautiful, beautiful
I
tree.
remember that. I remember that tree.
And it was for that National Grid project.
I remember
And the
that.
person who lived in that house didn't want a tree in front of her house. So it's now this big gaping.
Mhm.
But when you come down Main Street towards Greenwood too, there are no I know a bunch of trees came down in a few storms, but all along that train parking, there's not one tree.
Mhm.
That's bad. That's
Yeah.
wrong to me.
Yeah.
It just looks terrible. It
Yeah.
makes such a difference. Even, I mean, the trees around our neighborhood, they're small, but it's an incredible difference.
I agree.
So can I raise one other issue, sort of under the umbrella of pollinator gardens or use of space? I was at the master planning in-person, sort of community forum, whenever that was, a couple weeks ago. And it was on sustainability. The topic was on sustainability. And one of the people in my group was pointing out, and I agree with it, it was all about sort of climate resilience. And there was recently some work done at the town-owned building on the corner of Farm Street and Water Street. And they then proceeded to put in a sprinkler system and sod. And then I think there are some trees, but it was such an opportunity, I think, so this person was sort of just outraged by the idea of it. Like, why would this patch be grass and the sprinkler system? And that is not at all aligned with our municipal vulnerability plan, as well as, such an opportunity to have a little like pollinator garden or something that would be more aligned with really anything that makes any sense. I agree.
I think of that every day when I come to work and see the yellow signs on the grass out front of town hall.
Yeah,
And sprinklers that were on during the drought all summer.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's, I know we don't want to add more to our list, but I think this idea of encouraging different kind of plantings when there's space, just a little bit more of a deliberate strategy
Right.
to,
And that would have been a nice visual feature as well.
yeah,
to have
really
a nice-
beautiful. I mean,
you
it's
could
a
have a
kind of an
couple of
ugly
trees, but-
area. Again, there's
Right.
not a lot of trees. There's where it's in
Right.
that sort of environmental justice area of town.
Right.
And there's not a lot of tree cover, and it could have been an opportunity for a really cool
Right.
adding value space. And also I just, this person was commenting that like the sprinkler system just seems
There's absolutely no reason for a
ridiculous.
sprinkler system when you're on top of the river.
Right.
The river is
So,
right there.
I don't know sort of what, this was just one example.
Right. But I think
but-
it kind of goes to, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're going to do it. And I think that it's changing the mindset and changing the way things are looked at from a town perspective.
Yeah.
They have to set the example. And that when Tim Wilson in the engineering department was in my group at the master plan, and I just kept harping on that. If the town doesn't set the example, then it's never going to change. They need to, I mean, you don't need all the sweeping lawn at town hall. I don't think. You could have a nice planted area. They have a little garden on one side, which is nice. But along the front, they could have more plantings. I mean,
Good point.
they need to be the ones that are taking the charge, I think.
These are the kinds of things, maybe when we report out to ESC next week, the ESC will come in front of town council at some point. I don't know when, like usually we have annual updates. Like these are the kinds of things that like I want on our list to get presented to town council. And probably every committee has kind of these wish list type things that we would like to see. So that we can just start getting it into the DNA of the town, like you said, Judy, like, so we can get out of the, it's always been done this way and let's think differently.
Right. And it's the expedient way to do it. Keep it all grass and you just come in with the mower. But if you have a planted area that is drought resistant and does not need weeding, then you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
It's just changing the mindset.
And there was a model. I mean, I think when I was thinking about it, there was a model with the Friends of Lake Hugh, right? And they had volunteers who provided excellent advice on what plants to plant and contributed to the process of planting. And so I think that there are people.
Who did they, was that on a certain project that they provided input?
Well, at the head by the, what are the Gertrude Sullivan Park up there? I saw like a article about it, but I know that there
Oh,
was
they planted trees in the stairway, right? There's a rain garden up there that.
yeah, and they had some.
Yeah, that was directed by the plantings were directed by conservation.
But I know that they had, I only know because I talked to a friend of mine who's been really involved in the Greenwood pollinator gardens, and then they knew some other people who were involved in that also, sort of taking what they had learned in Greenwood and say, well, we could, we could do that at the head of the lake too. And so I feel like we
Right.
have, I mean, we
Right.
have expertise employed by the town for sure, but we also have
Right.
expertise in the residents of the town who have shown
Right,
interest and willingness to contribute.
right,
It's just,
yeah.
it's not clear to me what's the forum to make sure that we do pause long enough to ask that question.
Well, I think maybe something like a presentation at town council. And then
Or
they
maybe we
could-
have Dennis come to this meeting and explain to us kind of what he thinks about when is he consulted on things like that? Or I don't know whether it's just him or the engineering department or what.
I don't think unless they're directed in a certain, like by the pickleball court along the shore, Rebecca designed a beautiful pollinator garden
It's
to
really
enhance
nice.
that area
Mhm.
and some of the plantings. So I think unless they're directed to do it, they're going to get, the plants that are available, and I understand that. They're trying to get what's available, get it done. They don't have an unlimited staff. And that's part of the problem.
But this was sod put in
Right.
at the end of a drought. And,
Right. Yep. And there's absolutely no need for sprinklers there. I agree. I don't know if that's water department. I don't know what department that is. But I think it just goes back to this, we'll put in a couple of trees and that's a balance for them. We put in some trees so we can put in, the sprinklers are a mystery to me. The water table is so high there, you're drowning the grass at this point.
anyway, sorry, a little bit of a detour. But
No, but I think conservation, if the people that you know want to talk about a conservation as well, I mean, it's worth promoting it with them.
Yeah, coming in front of anybody, right? Any
Right,
public
Right,
participation.
the planning
It's
board.
really
or-
helpful.
Yeah, right. Because it's not always, it's not generally ever in the forefront is a consideration on a granular level of plantings in most areas, even in wetlands.
All right, so I will, I'll just, again, go back to the people that I know who are really passionate about this.
Mhm.
And see if we can get some, some volunteers in addition to sort of the ESC members who might want to follow up. I'm not an expert, so I can't speak to it
Yeah,
necessarily. I just, I agree that I think it's really a missed opportunity.
yeah. And there could be opportunities with the new Voc and the high school. There could be areas where there could be very vibrant, robust native plantings. So that might be something they want to take a look at and get involved with and advocate for. I mean, that's small money when you're looking at these projects.
Yeah, I expect at least for the high school, it's in the design. Because I know there's been a lot of talk about the sustainability features. But I think
I wouldn't count on that. Unless it's advocated for, I wouldn't count on it. Because that's generally the first thing that's lopped off. And maybe you could ask them not to have turf fields as well. That's another sticking point for me.
talk about heat island.
Right.
Go to soccer practice in May and it's hot out there.
Yeah, I mean, turf fields actually, I don't know whether that's this purview for this, but they're looking at redoing the old ones and putting new ones in.
Every 10 years, you have to redo them, apparently.
Mhm.
But Linfield has a pesticide subcommittee as part of conservation. And they had someone from Marblehead come out who is nationally renowned for natural turf fields. He's done Pepperdine University, I think University of Nevada, Las Vegas, football fields. I mean, it's amazing. Marblehead has all natural fields. And it's using native plantings, so it still stays green, it's drought tolerant. I mean, there are ways to do it. I know this is simpler because they don't have to cut it, you can just snow blow it off, but the downside is all those little pieces of rubber that are in everyone's washing machines and the kids are breathing in, and that's not a great solution. So there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. No lack of work. Has our volunteer jobs. Well, I think we got a lot covered today. Like I'm super
Yeah,
excited about the stewards. I think that some of these other ideas are really great. So
Wonderful, Judy. Absolutely great. Let us know how we can support that beyond obviously advertising it when it's ready to do so. I don't know if anyone had anything else. The other thing I just had quick note, because last time it wasn't scheduled, the Open Space and Recreation Committee process, the first meeting scheduled for November 16th at 6:30. So I'll be at that. I didn't know if others wanted to join. Judy, you're part of that too, right? So
Yep, I am.
and so I'll report back on that next time.
And I do believe the master plan survey is open, although embarrassingly, I don't have the link. But I will share it out. So it's again it's on transportation and sort of this climate resilience. And so if you all want to complete it or share it, I think that would be great.
yeah, it's open till November 18th.
Yes.
I'll have to do it.
So that's something that can be, the public comments welcome on that?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
they're surveys, and they ask they sort of pose a lot of different scenarios and ask for a prioritization of investments, and sort of the idea is to get to somewhat of a plan for how to invest and expand services and priorities for the town for the coming 20 years or so. So yes.
So I'm looking now at the list of okay, no, okay, good. No, so it is on Tiana's list of stuff to promote. This expressing perspectives through the MAPC. Okay, yeah, so we are already including it. I just want to make sure it was in there. But if that closes on the 18th, then I guess we should probably send a reminder a
Yeah,
few days before as well, because I think we sent something yesterday. Okay, I missed that. All right, shall we wrap things up?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Do we need a
We're at
formal
the-
motion?
My understanding has always been if you reach the end of agenda, you can end, you don't need a motion. So
Good, we're done.
So yeah, so we are wrapped up at 8:32 p.m. and see you all. Is that next week, the
I
full
think it's
committee
next
meeting?
week,
Yeah, the
must
10th.
be. Yep.
All right. See you all then. if
Thanks,
not before.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.